Back here today with Rich Norton. How you doing today, Rich?
I am super fantastic. Great to talk with you.
Great to talk with you as well. Rich, we've been talking about sales tactics, and I have a really interesting question for you. So, one of the things I found is that when a salesperson is really struggling and they're not doing well, and I asked them a question that we talked about a few weeks ago, which is, what do you say when you walk in? Which seems like a pretty obvious question. Um,
Yes.
I would say the vast majority of the time, it's not necessarily that they tell me something that I feel like is really bad that they're saying. It's that they have absolutely no idea what they're going to say. And
Yes.
and they'll kind of stutter and say, well, I usually say something like, well, I introduce myself and I say, hold on, I'm the merchant. You just walked in. Say what you would say exactly as you would say it. And they can't do it.
Yes.
And so I guess my question is, there's this balance, and I think there's a misconception that, well, if I memorize my lines or I prepare, I'm going to seem robotic or over prepared or something. And I think that can go really too far to where we have no idea. And then we're so focused on what we're saying or what we want or we're going to say that we aren't able to listen. So, how do you approach this balance of really just preparing and knowing what you're going to say versus sounding robotic?
That's a great question. I think it's important that you do have a script when you first walk into the business, and then you rehearse it and you rehearse it and you rehearse it, and then you get it to fit your personality. Those that have watched me work in the field, they'll see that I pretty much say same thing when I walk in. I might change up a couple things depending on when I walk in. If I see a dog, I'll say, "Oh, is that the guard dog?" So I look for things to kind of throw them off a little bit. But I think it's important to know exactly what you're going to say so you're not thinking about, oh, I hope I say the right thing, or what am I going to say? Because same thing, when I've asked representatives, let me hear what you say when you first walk in, because they don't know what they're going to say. It typically sounds like and then they lose their eye contact and they lost their confidence, and because of that they've lost the merchant. So it's important to be able to walk in and know exactly what you're going to say, and that's going to bring the confidence, so you're not thinking about it at all. And then how do you get that to come to a point where it doesn't sound robotic? You just got to practice it and then rehearse and go over it and over it and record it, and then it comes to the point where it's just natural. And I tell everybody that when you're if somebody was to ask you and they said, "Hey, James, tell me a little bit about what you do," well, you're not going to automatically go, "Well, I'm a representative of so and so." You're not going to be going into pitch mode. You're going to
Right.
explain it with excitement. And that should be the same thing when you walk into the business. "Hey, I'm helping a bunch of businesses in the area. I'm the supervisor with so and so," and same thing. So it's important to know exactly what you're going to say and then just kind of fit it with your personality. So that's a great topic. I think that's really important.
Yeah. I had a situation, Rich, I've shared in videos a long time ago, been a while, but one time my wife, who's really into drama and performances and things, she convinced me to be in this play at our church for Christmas. And I had this, primary role in this play. So I had a lot of lines, and we were having these practices every week, and they just sounded awful. We were all reading our lines, at this table, and I was
Yes.
like, well, this is going to be terrible. Well, then Christina, my wife, says, all right, everybody, next week is the deadline. No lines. You can't hold your lines, right? So we all are scrambling to memorize all of our lines. And that at that practice, I realized, oh, this actually sounds really good. And the reason is because we had finally memorized what we were going to say. We weren't thinking about that anymore. And we were now able to look at each other, play off of the emotions. And it really taught me that, there's this misconception that, well, if I memorize my lines, I'm going to sound robotic. No, if you don't memorize your lines, you're going to sound like an idiot.
That's right. Yes.
And now if you read I'm not going to walk into a merchant with a piece of paper and read my lines. Obviously, that would be awful, but there is a level of preparation where, yeah, when you memorize those lines to the point that, okay, when I get this objection, I know what I'm going to say. Or, when I walk in, I know what I'm going to say. When I go to close, I have a bunch of different options. I have a lot of different closing questions, but I've memorized them. All of a sudden, you actually sound much more natural because you're not worried about what you're going to say. You're playing off of the emotions and the visual contact with the other person.
Agreed, 100%. And you make a great point. That's why I think role playing is a big part of it also,
Yes.
because when you give that awesome opener and they give you an objection or a question, rather than going, "Oh, I didn't cover that part. What do I say here?" So
Right.
that's why it's important that whatever objection comes up, let's work on that. And you're going to keep improving. You're going to keep on getting better. But it's important to learn the lines and to get it down, because I've had people do that. It's like I'll teach them a line, teach them the opener, and then a month later, it's like, okay, let me hear what you're saying. And I'm like, where did you get that from? That's not even close to what we're teaching you. Well, I figured I'd try to do it this way. I'm like, well, how's that working for you? Well, not very good. Well, let's go back and learn the
Right.
lines and get this down. So yeah, great points.
Yeah, well, I think too, it's like you wanna have a pattern of like, I know this works. So if somebody like copied, pretty much what you say, right? They wouldn't be able to deliver it in the same way, but they copied what you said, right? That's going to be a pattern of success. And then they might want to slowly iterate off of that. But when you just try
Yes,
to go and say, well, I think I'm going to do something just totally off the wall, you don't need to do that. There are many, many other representatives that are being successful. Just figure out what they're doing and then of course adapt it to your personality, etc. But like, right, you don't need to break the mold. Usually when you
exactly.
break the mold, you don't make any sales. So,
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. It works. Just
exactly.
go out there and learn it and do it.
Exactly. Well, Rich, for those who want to reach out and learn more about your team, the super crew there at Payrock, where would you send them to learn more?
Yeah, reach out to me at 904-434-4635, or you can email me at payrocrich norton at gmail.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rich.
Thank you very much.